Welcome to BizTech's Enterprise Technology Show. Today we feature AWS, Amazon Web Services. Now they provide highly scalable, low-cost infrastructure platforms that power thousands of businesses in 190 countries around the world. To tell us more, we have Dr. Ishwar Parulkar. He's the Chief Technologist for Telecom and Edge Cloud at Amazon Web Services. Now, Dr. Ishwar, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Now, Dr. Ishwar, you're dialing in from the Silicon Valley, but tell us a little bit more about AWS and your role within the organization.
So as most people are familiar, AWS is a cloud company. We invented the cloud and have built over 200 services over time. And within AWS, we have recently started focusing on a few verticals. These are strategic verticals that we are looking at because they either have custom technology needs, they have a unique go-to-market motion, the standards bodies, and an ecosystem of partners involved. And telecom is one of these verticals. My role at AWS is as the chief technologist for this vertical. Having spent decades in this industry through other vendors, network vendors who worked on building 4G networks, I have background in this space, but I realized that a few years ago, the cloud had a significant role to play in transforming this industry, which is what brought me to AWS. I'm responsible for technology strategy, building new services, features, and other innovations to help telcos transform their business operations and how they build networks. So across the board.
And Dr. Ishwar, could you then dive a little bit deeper and unpack what do you actually offer these telcos and how do they make money from this?
So there's a few things we do with telcos. One is just the standard approach of moving enterprise IT workloads to the cloud. This is what all enterprises do. This is what the cloud has been about for 17, 18 years now. Telcos have their own enterprise IT workloads and their own data centers where they run their internal operations. And all of that we are looking to move to the cloud. So that's one part of what we do. The other part is around really helping them build networks in a different way. So we call this cloudification of networks. So as virtualization and software-defined networking has taken hold, we're looking at moving these network workloads and running them on the cloud to build networks. And 5G is really nicely suited to this because the architecture was designed to enable this. With moving networks onto the cloud, we help telcos derive benefits of lower total cost of ownership, 24/7 CI/CD type of operations that we've been used to in the cloud, as well as automation of operations and resolving failures. So that's the second piece. The third piece is around just reinventing the customer experience. And here, AI technology plays a big role. We're looking at how we can help telcos understand their customers better in terms of building cloud contact centers, understanding customer sentiment, as well as tailoring personalized offers to these customers. So that's kind of the third piece, which is using AI ML to really improve customer experience. And the last piece is about monetizing these network assets. So we are bringing our assets, which is services at the edge of the network, as well as having network APIs exposed through AWS, so that telcos can tap into new sources of revenue and digitize industries and go beyond just being pure connectivity players.
Okay, and that's a big issue. I want to zoom in on the fourth point, really. It's about monetization. Telcos want to move away from just being pipes and monetize different services through partners like you. Could you give us some examples of how you help some of your customers globally in this to fulfill this objective?
So there's a few examples I can give you here. One is in terms of really being able to build things like private networks and combining that with the cloud edge. So when you have the cloud edge integrated with networks, you can run other services like an AI ML stack or IoT services that we have at the edge, and that enables telcos to create new applications. So one of the things we've done, for example, is worked with TELUS, which is a Canadian operator, to help them build a smart home platform. So we built two new IoT services to seamlessly onboard third-party devices and then interface with backend systems like OSS, BSS, and they've been able to create a platform on which other developers can build applications for security monitoring and automation of home systems, smart home systems. So that's one example of a new area that an operator has been able to get into by partnering with us. Some other examples are being able to build private networks and get into verticals like manufacturing or retail or mining or autonomous vehicles, where you can build these private networks and then again run applications on top because of the services we bring to the private networks to help get telcos into new verticals. And so, in addition to connectivity, they can sell these other additional services. So there's a few ways we are helping them monetize their network. APIs, network APIs is a big new initiative that the industry has really adopted. And this is about giving access to the network as well as giving information from the network to developers so that they can build new applications. So this is really providing network as a developer platform. So not just as a connectivity service, but as a developer platform that applications can be built on in addition to services from the cloud. So quite a few ways of monetizing the network now.
Okay, and then which brings me then, perhaps I should ask you about your partnership with Vonage, uh, literally leveraging AWS and network APIs. Tell us about that and how this is going to be a game changer.
So OneEdge is a communications a platform as a service provider, or what we call CPaaS provider. So they have communication APIs. Traditionally, they've had communication APIs, SMS, voice, etc. But now they're adding network APIs, and this is something all operators are building, which is really APIs that go deep into the network. So now they're building a platform which includes network APIs. And what we're doing with them is bringing our assets together, which are other AWS services that are required to build applications and infrastructure on which to host these applications, along with the APIs that they have to build new solutions. So we launched anti-fraud solution as the first one, where the Vonage fraud defender software has been enhanced with their network APIs. And then what we have done is taken it to the next level by including AWS services like Amazon Recognition and Amazon Bedrock to improve the fraud score even more. And this solution is offered as a SaaS offering on AWS Marketplace.
And that's really quite an interesting solution, because in a lot of markets around the world, because of the level of fraud associated with spam and also scammers, many people are actually not even responding to their phone calls anymore. Or older people have been victims of fraud because they've clicked in or answered questions that they shouldn't. So a lot of times this solution is actually quite a game changer in many markets.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a necessity these days, because the folks who kind of try to break security boundaries are always, trying to up whatever is, available today, right? So you can keep on doing better. And this is a great example of how this can be enhanced even more as we go along, right? I mean, there was already fraud defender software that existed that OneEdge had, but then they added network APIs on top, which was things like number insight, which pulls intelligence about a phone number, including current carrier, network type, porting status as well. And then also a SIM swap API, which is a Camara API, which checks if the SIM was used in another device. So that's another layer that they were able to add with network APIs. And we went one step further with Amazon Recognition, which does highly accurate facial recognition and biometric liveness checks. And then Amazon Bedrock, which is a generative AI service, which evolves the fraud profiles. And as you get more data and as behaviors change, it can adapt the solution to that. So you can keep on doing more by combining the assets of network APIs, the information from the network, as well as our AWS services. And this is just one example, but the key idea here is how can we bring all of these different assets together to really build compelling solutions and provide value to the end users.
That's really interesting. Now, Dr. Ishwar, I want to bring us back to a point that you made earlier around how you change the way operators can set up the networks. And that's really around of course, the opportunities around 5G. How are you helping operators reimagine their networks for lower cost and quicker implementation, especially given that 5G is being rolled out around the world at different stages?
So if you look at from 100,000-foot level, the cloud is essentially large-scale multi-tenanted infrastructure for compute and storage. And we have lots of other services on top, but fundamentally it's compute and storage. And networks are similar. They are large-scale multi-tenanted, but they do connectivity, right? And there's no reason why networks cannot be built. There's no technical reason why networks cannot be built the way that we have built the cloud, which is elastic, with new consumption models like on demand. When you need resources, you use them. When you don't, you give them up and don't have to pay for them. Our operations are 24/7. We deploy software continuously, updates, patches, new versions of software without bringing any customers or the infrastructure down. And we wanted to bring all of that to networks. And that's what we've been able to do with running the packet core from vendors like Nokia, as well as now we're looking at the radio stack. We have other network functions that we are running on the cloud. Once you start going down that path, then you start deriving all the benefits. You can automate the lifecycle management of these network functions. This means you can save on operational cost. You can deploy AI-based automation and root cause analysis techniques on top of this to really further reduce the time to resolve failures as well as operational cost. And then lastly, it's very agile because it's software driven and CI/CD based. You can create new services very quickly with just a few API calls. You can create a network slice. You can build NVNOs on top of the network with a few API calls in a matter of hours, as opposed to days and months that it used to take. So a lot of benefits that the cloud has been able to provide enterprises now come to networks with this approach.
Dr. Ishwar, it's been a fascinating conversation. You've just definitely enlightened us on a couple of things that we definitely need to think about. But before we leave, any final thoughts and key messages you'd like to leave the audience with?
Definitely. I think there's two big transformational moments here for the telco industry. One is around just the excitement and technology evolution around artificial intelligence and machine learning with generative AI. I think it's a huge opportunity to transform the industry from customer engagement, customer experience, to internal business operations, to how networks are operated. So I think it's a moment, a transformational moment in technology in general, and telcos are well poised to level the playing field by getting onto this early. And the second one is really looking at networks in a very different way. And the whole move towards using APIs to give access to the networks is indicating how networks can be really looked at as a more of a developer platform asset and not just a connectivity asset. So these two are very key inflection points that the industry needs to capitalize on and change the game.
Dr. Ishwar, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Now, we've been speaking to Dr. Ishwar Parulkar. He's the Chief Technologist for Telecom and Edge Cloud at Amazon Web Services. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to BizTech's Enterprise Technology Show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.